Thunder Thursday Hangout. Hey, everybody. I'm Dave Morris. Thanks for clicking this afternoon on newsok.com. We're going to talk about the Thunder, the NBA team here in Oklahoma City over the next 30 minutes. This segment brought to you by our friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Be sure to check them out. It's tax season. You may be getting a tax refund. Maybe you need a car. Check out Wheeler Chevrolet. They will hook you up with that. The Thunder Thursday Hangout. I'm Dave Morris. We're joined today on the Google Hangout with Anthony Slater. He is in Boston, I believe. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. It's cold here, though.
Don't tell me about cold. How cold is it there?
High of 16 today.
Anthony, let's start with you. The Thunder's on the heels of a big win last night in San Antonio, and yet another sparkling game by Kevin Durant. But at the end of that game, perhaps we saw Kevin Durant tweak of his shoulder. What's going on there, or what can you tell us about that?
He was icing it in the post-game locker room last night. He went up for a dunk, kind of got hit weird, and I think it was maybe a tweak where one of those quick separations where it doesn't completely come out of the socket. It just kind of looked like a minor tweak. Like I said, he was icing it in the post-game locker room, but he was asked about it. He said, "I'm good, it's fine." Had a smile on his face when he said it, but I don't think it's anything to be too concerned about. He had that wrist thing a couple weeks ago, or a week or so ago, where he sat out practice, but that didn't stop him from playing. I would assume he'll play tomorrow against the Celtics.
Anthony is joining us in Boston right now. The Thunder is in Boston to take on the Celtics on Friday night. They're also on the road on Saturday in Philadelphia before they return home for a game on Monday night. We're joined by Darnell Mayberry as well. Darnell, how are you?
Doing well, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Durant is in the midst of an 8-game, at least 30 points per game streak right now. Talk about his performance.
Well, last night made it 9, I believe. Yep. So he's playing incredible basketball right now. And the thing that I'm most impressed with is his efficiency. He's over 50% shooting from the field this season, 40% shooting from three-point range. So the fact that he's not forcing things and he's still looking for teammates and still being effective as a scorer, to me, is the most impressive thing.
You can join us on newsok.com/live. I think I just got a text message right there. If you want to join the conversation for Darnell and Anthony, pass along a question. I'll throw it their way. Darnell, you bring up a good point there about his efficiency. When you look at LeBron and Kevin Durant and talk about the MVP race, both of these guys, their shooting percentage is crazy for the amount of shots they take, the amount of high-pressure shots they take, and the amount of scoring that they do.
Yeah, we're watching two of the game's best right now go at it. It's a shame almost that they play in different conferences and don't get to see each other but twice a year. So I wish they had more of a rivalry where they played each other, maybe even in the same division. They could play 4 times a year. But we got to take what we can get, and that's 2 meetings a year. And it's coming up next month that we get to see these guys head to head. And I know a lot of people want to see those guys face off again in the finals. This time, Kevin Durant seems much more equipped to deal with LeBron James. So I think that's his next biggest test.
Anthony, you and Darnell are among the local media, the only local media here at the Oklahoman that goes to every game of the Thunder, home and on the road. So you talk to a lot of your colleagues that cover the NBA. What are they saying about the MVP race? Is it over at this point, or, hey, a lot of basketball to be played?
It's not over at this point, but I think Durant has taken, with this streak that he's on right now, has taken a firm grasp of kind of the favorite status. And if things kind of move the same throughout the season, I think he'll win it pretty comfortably. And everyone's that I've been talking to, as far as road writers or road coaches, Greg Popovich, anyone, they're as impressed with what Durant's doing as anyone is. You never know what's going to happen. I mentioned this in the past. Last year Durant might have been the favorite around this time too, and then the Heat went on that huge streak of 27 straight, and LeBron kind of won it from that. I don't see that really happening this year with the way that the Heat are kind of pacing themselves, and it looks like they're going to maybe allow the Pacers to win the 1 seed, not really try to go and be competitive for that. We'll see. But you got to like Durant's chances at this point.
Anthony, I tweeted you last night during the pregame interviews. You were among those interviewing Greg Popovich. I was tweeting you, like, look out, he may go in for the hug. Was there ever a threat of a hug?
He was not hugging anyone in the media last night. Far from it. No, I don't want to say a punch, but Hug was the furthest thing from what he was thinking.
Darnell, your boy Paul George, or at least a user logging into newsok.com/live by the name of Paul George, asked the following question. Durant plays LeBron next week. Could that be something voters are watching in terms of the MVP? We may have lost Darnell. Anthony, I'll throw that your way. Thunder Heat next week. Perhaps something the voters look at in the MVP race.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's a big stage for Durant to make the statement to where maybe we could start saying that he's getting it wrapped up is when they go head-to-head. But if LeBron comes out and the Heat win comfortably both games and LeBron really outplays Durant, then, LeBron may vault himself back into favorite status. The head-to-head matchups, as Darnell was mentioning, I mean, we don't get to see it that much, but when we do, it's must-see TV. The whole league's tuned in. And, I mean, everyone watches them go to head-to-head. A lot of times they guard each other. Sometimes, there's some cross matchups where they're not guarding each other. But this year, I have a feeling they're both going to kind of take the challenge and go face up for 2 straight games in the next month.
Chatting with Anthony Slater here on the Thunder Thursday Hangout, brought to you by Wheeler Chevrolet. I'm Dave Morris. Thanks for watching us here on newsok.com. You can participate. Ask your questions. I'll pass those along to our guys here. Darnell Mayberry, we lost him, but he'll be back. Anthony, one of the fun things about what we're seeing with Kevin Durant, especially after the game last night, you're watching the Twitter buzz, is he needs another nickname. Apparently KD is not just enough. Apparently it's not just enough for a guy to have a nickname that a restaurant's named after. The Slim Reaper is being thrown out there. That's just kind of the fun thing about the NBA with nicknames and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton that have been out there. The Durant, the Slim Reaper, it's kind of creative, and I mean, it's good, but I mean, he's not embracing it. He just went on Twitter. Somebody just asked him maybe an hour ago about it, and he said, well, I like KD. And, I mean, that's how he is. I mean, he likes this KD nickname. People keep saying he doesn't have a nickname. I mean, I know it's not that creative, but that's what he's called. You can't force nicknames, and this Slim Reaper, although it sounds creative, does seem a little bit forced. I would assume, that buzz will wear off within a week, and we'll be back. I mean, it's going to be KD.
That was my initial reaction to that as well. As Slim Reaper, yeah, that's kind of catchy, but there's nothing wrong with KD. Just like Adrian Peterson in the NFL, he was AD in Norman for all day, and now he gets the NFL, and it's AP according to the national media. It's simple, it's effective, and people know who you're talking about. What about your post-game blog? You had a GIF of Durant with some sort of weird arm movement. What was going on there?
Oh, he was doing the motorcycle or vroom vroom. It's something that Vince Carter I've seen do a lot in the past. I think he's just getting bored and he's decided new ways to celebrate threes. I've seen him do that a couple times. I wouldn't say new celebration, but it was an interesting one. You never know. I mean, like you were saying, the NBA, it's a weird league, and just weird stuff happens with nicknames and celebrations, and the scrum last night with Derek Fisher, where Patty Mills is getting into him, and then the refs on him. It's just a dramatic league, and stuff like that happens on a night-to-night basis.
We saw who was it? Richard Sherman after the game on Sunday. I got to thinking, perhaps there was a little bit of premeditation going on in this. And do you think we'll see more of that from professional athletes? We used to see that after touchdowns, a staged celebration, but we've never really seen a staged post-game interview /rant. Do you think we'll get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, in this Twitter age, it kind of depends on the athlete, but if he's looking for some recognition, what is it? We're Thursday on a Sunday game, and we're talking about a Seattle Seahawks cornerback still.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, it's a guy who's got recognition from this. If he just makes that play and then does a normal post-game interview, you're hearing his name, 95% less this week. So if we're talking about an athlete that kind of wants his name out there a little bit more, I could definitely see them kind of using post-game interviews or stuff like that as a platform to get it out there, because they know once it happens, I mean, Twitter's going to take hold of it. There's going to be a video out within 5 minutes, and people start talking about it.
It is the culture, and we're very accustomed to using our technology, including the live chat here today on newsok.com. I'm chatting with Anthony Slater here. A question for you, Anthony, from Michael B. Reggie Jackson, 6th man of the year when Westbrook gets back?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a good shot because there's not that many great candidates this year. Manu Ginobili, who we kind of thought was maybe over the hill a little bit, has, actually had a pretty good year, and he may be the favorite at this point.
I think ESPN had some of their mid-season awards yesterday, and you're right, Ginobili was number one according to their reporters.
Yeah, the thing with Jackson is you got to come off the bench more than half the games. So depending on how many games Westbrook misses the rest of the year, he may not be eligible. But if he's eligible, he's definitely one of the leading candidates, the way he's scoring and playmaking for the Thunder.
Darnell Mayberry has resurfaced. He rejoins us. I'll throw the same question to you, Darnell, from one of our users asking about Reggie Jackson as Sixth Man of the Year when Westbrook gets back.
It's possible. I think he's garnering a lot of attention right now, being the starter without Russell Westbrook healthy. So I think that helps. People can really recognize what he's bringing to this team right now. And it's also helping that he's gaining a lot of experience and confidence playing against first-string guys. I mean, that experience that he's getting against Darren Williams and Damian Lillard, Tony Parker, guys like Mike Conley. This is invaluable experience for him. So when he goes back to the bench, he's going to be that much more comfortable and confident against second-unit guys because of the experience he's gotten against first-stringers.
It's a very good point. We're talking about mid-season awards here, sixth man of the award specifically. But another comment from user Bradley, who asks, who is you guys' mid-season MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, those awards? Darnell, who do you think?
I'd go with Kevin Durant and probably Roy Hibbert. I haven't really analyzed the defensive players out there, but the Pacers are doing some incredible things defensively, and Roy Hibbert is the key to that team on defense right now. So I think you have to give it to him at this point. And then Kevin Durant, I mean, he's having a better overall season than LeBron James. His team is better without their number two player or sidekick, however you want to refer to Dwayne Wade and Russell Westbrook. The Thunder's team is better without Russell Westbrook than the Heat's is without Dwayne Wade. So just any way you slice it, take away the assist, take away the efficiency, and Kevin Durant is having a better season than LeBron James right now.
And they're both posting just absolutely remarkable numbers. But when you just look at the numbers, you're right, Durant's having a better season as well. Anthony, your thoughts on mid-season MVP and Defensive Player of the Year?
I mean, I actually agree with both those. Maybe the first time I've ever agreed with Darnell about something like this.
We're going to go back to the mock GM draft here in a minute.
Which I don't agree with you on that, Dave, by the way. And a lot of fans didn't either. But, yeah, I mean, Roy Hibbert, Stan Van Gundy called it the Pacers the best defensive team he's seen in like 20 years. And, I mean, like Darnell mentioned, he's the center of that. He's 7'3", pretty athletic for a 7'3" guy as far as, getting up. He's really good with his, the verticality rule. He's become really good with that. He's just a menace down there. I mean, even when the Heat play Indiana, LeBron James, who's, that physical force, he has issues going inside. Sometimes he's even, I don't want to say afraid to go inside, but he's reluctant at times. So Hibbert there, and I mean, like we were just talking about earlier, I think Durant's clearly the MVP favorite at this point.
Chatting with Darnell Mayberry and Anthony Slater from the Oklahomans sports staff. They are the Thunder Buddies. Be sure to catch their podcast every week on newsok.com. It's on iTunes. These guys posted on the Thunder Rumblings blog. You're watching the Thunder Thursday Hangout right now with these guys and myself. I'm Dave Morris here on newsok.com. This 30 minutes of Thunder Talk is brought to you by Wheeler Chevrolet. You can join us, submit your comments at newsok.com/live. And guys, while we're talking about MVP races, Colin says, is the All-Star Game something voters look at in the MVP voting? Darnell?
I don't understand the question. Can you clarify,
I think
please?
what he's saying is we see the best of the best in the NBA All-Star Game. Does that weigh in with voters at all when it comes to MVPs?
I don't think so.
I would agree with you just because it's such a rec league type game at that point, unless it gets close at the very end, right?
For the All-Star Game MVP, it's always interesting. But, I mean, like Darnell said, they're going to weigh a lot more when Durant and LeBron play head-to-head, Heat, Thunder, than East-West.
All right, let's get away from the MVP and talk about the stretch that the Thunder's on right now. 5-0 over a killer stretch, knocking off Houston, Golden State, Sacramento, Portland, and we saw them beat San Antonio right now. Anthony, break down the run that they're on right now.
It's probably just considering that, they're missing top 10 player in the world, top 5 player in the world. It's probably their most impressive stretch of the season. 5-0 over 7 days, and 4 of those, a Houston Warriors back-to-back where they swept, and then this Portland Spurs one that they just swept. I mean, they're playing really good ball. Their offense is kind of moving well. Obviously, we know what Durant's doing. Last night, Reggie Jackson was really good. They're just getting contributions from a lot of places, and then Durant's just playing, maybe his best stretch of his career.
Darnell, what changed? Right after Westbrook's injury, they were 5-5, and now 5 huge wins in a row. What changed?
Well, Kevin Durant, they've played, I think, 15 games now without Russell Westbrook since December, or since he went out 2 days after Christmas. And they're 5-0 in the last 5 games. They started off 5-5. Kevin Durant was phenomenal in most of those first 10 games, but he just wasn't getting much help from his teammates, and the defense wasn't where it needed to be. Now, Kevin Durant has taken it to another level offensively, and he's now getting help from his teammates offensively, where you're seeing Reggie Jackson step up and make shots. You're saying Serge Ibaka find his shooting touch. He scored 20 straight, at least 20 points in 3 straight games during this stretch for the first time in his career. So guys like Jeremy Lamb, Derek Fisher are stepping up and making timely shots. And then the second thing is the defense. You saw them really get blown out at Utah, never really stand much of a chance in the second half at Denver. The defense just wasn't where it needed to be, and now they've got a nice mix of quality contributions from everyone else, a phenomenal performance from Kevin Durant, and better defense.
Darnell, you're talking about the individual plays of people finding their own, they're playing better. Talking about the defense. Over the stretch, though, what's impressed you the most?
Kevin Durant, no doubt about it. I mean, the guy has averaged a little over 36 points, almost 37 points since Russell Westbrook went down. And, again, he's just being efficient. He's turning it over way too much. He had 11 last night. But take away the turnovers, and you really can't complain about anything the guy's doing. He's not only scoring the basketball, but he's making his teammates better, putting them in positions to be threats. And he's really carrying this team right now.
Anthony, what's impressed you the most over this stretch?
Well, I mean, it would be Durant, but I mean it's clearly Durant's play. But for sake of diversity, I just think it's kind of just Serge Ibaka's been really good. I'll go with him. He had those 3 games of 20 straight points in 3 straight games, which is the longest stretch of his career. He's getting a good amount of points with not a lot of shots that are still not going his way. And he's been really good defensively. Last night he had 5 blocks, and I mean, they were some impressive blocks. He's doing what he's done. And we were just talking about Defensive Player of the Year earlier, and while I think Roy Hibbert's the favorite, I think Serge Ibaka's probably generating a little buzz too, just with the way he's been playing lately, kind of leading that defense, along with obviously Kendrick Perkins and Tabo. Or Perkins probably having his best stretch of the season right now too.
Anthony, we were talking about Reggie Jackson just a second ago. Let's talk about Reggie versus the Spurs. Is it a coincidence or a trend that he's torching him?
Yeah, 71 points on 30 of 45 shooting in 3 games. I mean, over 20 points in each game.
It's like you at the Apupco League.
Yeah, doing that Euro step. I know. I mean, everybody knows it. The Darnell's seen it. But yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think Tony Parker can't guard him, and I think Patty Mills has 0 shot at guarding him. And I think when Westbrook's back, and especially if this is a potential playoff series, I think Reggie Jackson is going to have a huge advantage in that kind of second unit matchup unless the Spurs get someone in there. And I think Popovich recognizes it. I've heard him compliment Reggie Jackson after all 3 games more than I've heard him compliment even Kevin Durant. So, I mean, I think he notices what Reggie Jackson's doing to their team, and I think he's going to have to try to figure out a way to slow him somehow.
Darnell, so what's the deal with Reggie versus the Spurs? What is he seeing against them that, for whatever reason, just makes the game easier maybe?
You know what? I can't explain it, and I don't know what he's saying, but I know what I'm saying, and it's shades of James Harden in the 2012 Western Conference Finals, because I was watching Reggie Jackson last night, and the way he took over, scored 11 straight in the fourth quarter to help the Thunder really seize control of that game. I had flashbacks to James Harden and what he was doing against that same team in that same building in that Western Conference Finals to lift the Thunder to help the Thunder to the NBA Finals. So if Reggie Jackson can continue to play like that, all that James Harden talk, which I think is starting to dwindle a lot, but all of that James Harden talk, you're not going to hear anymore about the Thunder should have let James Harden sign a max deal, because Reggie Jackson is becoming almost James Harden reincarnated.
That's a very good point. It's the Thunder Thursday Hangout right here on newsok.com. You can participate at newsok.com/live. Submit your questions. I'm Dave Morris. I'm joined by Anthony Slater, Darnell Mayberry, and Jenny Carlson has joined the fray as well. This conversation brought to you by Wheeler Chevrolet. Guys, I want to talk about Kendrick Perkins, and I believe in the control room we have a clip from the other night if we want to roll that. So, guys, that was a clip of Kendrick Perkins the other night at Chesapeake Energy Arena, and that was his shot from the baseline. And this was a clip we pulled off of YouTube from a fan in the stands. And as Perkins went up to shoot, there was a whole bunch of no's, yes, because he makes the huge shot there at the end. Does this do anything to quell the amnesty talk, Jenny?
I don't know if one 15-footer down the stretch can quell that kind of talk.
Pretty cool 15-footer, though.
Important one, too. And as these guys know, the amnesty perk talk is around no matter what time of year, no matter what situation. But you know what? He hit a big shot, and he also played some awesome defense down the stretch. LaMarcus Aldridge, who had been instrumental in the Portland wins earlier this year, he shut him down cold. LaMarcus not making shots down the stretch really turned the tide. His defense was outstanding, and that matchup really suited him well down the stretch. So Perk with a great stretch. I don't think it turns off the amnesty perk talk, but it definitely gives him maybe a slight reprieve from that.
Darnell, your take on Perkins?
I'm with Slater. He's played his best ball in this stretch, and you got to give him credit. Because he gets a lot of criticism, takes a lot of heat from fans, media, locally, nationally. So I think the fact that he's been able to stick with it and provide some really nice contributions offensively and defensively. Not that great offensively, but he's been able to get some putbacks and catch dump-off passes and finish. So, and you mentioned the jumper. So he's playing really well right now.
Anthony, your thoughts on this? And I guess my question to any of you guys is, you are around the Thunder players in the locker room and just covering them at home and on the road. Do they really care as much as we think they might care, or does it bother them?
About the criticism?
Right.
I think more than anyone, Perkins probably watches it. He seems about as sensitive and aware of it than anyone. I think a lot of them, they'll lead you to believe that they don't, pay attention to it. But wouldn't you Google your name? If you knew there was going to be stories out there about you or stuff, you'd probably Google your name and say, hey, what's somebody saying about me today? It's just human nature to kind of read it. And, Perkins, like he says, he kind of catches a lot of heat, a lot of, vitriol about him, about his offensive game. I guess depending on who you are, it could really bother you.
All right, we're chatting with Anthony Slater, Jenny Carlson, and Darnell Mayberry here on the Thunder Thursday Hangout, brought to you by Wheeler Chevrolet. Be sure to check them out. WheelerChevy.com, I believe, is the URL. Let's move on to Thabo Sefolosha. He seems to have gone back to his strong suit, clearly a valuable defender. Jenny, we'll start with you. Ultimately, do you think he'll be re-signed by Oklahoma City?
I think this is an interesting question for sure in terms of just where does this team go in the future. They've pretty clearly shown that they're not going to hang on to guys who they don't think they can sign and get to free agency and get nothing out of them. If that's sort of one trend, if we've learned one trend with the Thunder when it comes to contracts, that's kind of the takeaway in my mind. So I think the question is Thabo Sefolosha going to do – is he going to re-sign? Is he going to accept a number or close to a number that they throw out. And I don't know ultimately what he decides, but I tend to think yes, he'll stay with the team, but the market is a crazy place. There's all kinds of guys that get paid wacky salaries out there, so maybe he tests it, but I just kind of keep coming back to thinking that I think he stays. I don't know what these other guys think, but I don't think the Thunder's going to get to the point where they get to the end of a contract and don't get anything for him. That's for sure.
Let's find out what they think. We'll start with you, Darnell.
What do we think about what?
Thabo Sefolosha re-signing with the Thunder.
I don't know if I see that happening. They got some guys coming up in the pipeline, Jeremy Lamb, Andre Robertson, that really can get it done. I mean, I'm hearing questions about whether or not Reggie Jackson can step in as the starting shooting guard next year. While I don't think that can happen or will happen, I do think it's a legitimate question. So I know that they really like what they get from Thabo Sefolosha, and I know that he's really effective and helps you really stay in games defensively with his perimeter defense on guys. I mean, you're seeing him be able to switch over to point guards, guard them, guard the best wing players in the league. Without him, the defense is not what it is. I mean, he's really – if Kendrick Perkins and Serge Ibaka anchor it inside, Thabo Sefolosha anchors it on the perimeter. So if the money is right, I think he'll come back, but the money has really got to be extremely favorable for the Thunder to even bring him back.
Anthony, we'll throw it your way now. Thabo Sefolosha re-signing with the Thunder?
I agree with Darnell. I think it's unlikely. I mean, you got Jeremy Lamb and Andre Robertson, who are going to be a lot cheaper. They probably combined may make less, because they're on their rookie contracts, can maybe combined make less than Thabo would make next year. And I think Jeremy Lamb deserves more minutes, especially as he goes forward. He looks like he's continually improving, and he's only 21, 22 years old. He'll be a really good offensive threat. And then as far as, you do lose a little defense if Thabo leaves. But Andre Robertson looks like a potential defensive specialist, up and coming, where his offense is raw. But, I mean, he's shown even when Thabo was hurt this year, the capabilities to come in and shut a score down for, small stretches of the games. And I think that's kind of how they view him moving forward. If he can help, or if he can improve that offensive game a little, he could be a really good player.
With this current team, I think they lose a little more than a little defense with Thabo Sefolosha. We were talking at lunch today about how great and how fantastic he was against the Blazers. Even Isaiah Thomas going crazy the other night against Sacramento, and Thabo is kind of the only one that has any effectiveness on him. I'm not saying that younger guys can't develop into being a guy who can defend on the wing, as well as Thabo. But right now, if you're talking about on this current roster, if they've got someone, they're sure not using them because, guys that they're getting scorched by on the perimeter, it's usually Thabo that is the cooler on those guys.
Yeah, well, I think they could use Robertson and have used Robertson in that role, and I think he could play almost to the level of Thabo defensively. They just then lose offense and experience and that type of deal. But I think they've shown when Thabo went out that Robertson fills in, almost to that point, and then that gets Jeremy Lamb more minutes. I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, they don't, want Thabo to leave or could easily, replace him. But I think into the future with the developments of those guys, I think they're thinking that.
They better hope that they continue to develop. I agree. I think there's a possibility, but if you're talking about right now, could somebody slide into that role? I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'm not saying they're going to trade him right away or anything like that, so I don't think we're going to have to answer that question. But, I think it's going to require a continued up trajectory on some of those guys to think they've got an in-the-pipeline replacement coming.
Getting towards the end of the Thunder Thursday hangout here. Hey, Darnell, one of our users asked the question, does Royal Ivy get re-signed to another 10-day contract? We have to keep the winning streak alive.
It's all Royal Ivy. I think he does. I mean, they love what he brings just from a camaraderie and chemistry standpoint. So, and as long as Russell Westbrook is out, why not? I mean, it's a cheap contract, another 10-day. He's familiar with what's going on here in the organization, how they like to do things. Great locker room guy, so I think he does.
Pretty good pickup by the Thunder management there. Final question for you guys. The Thunder tomorrow night at Boston. I don't know if Anthony can show us the view out his balcony, but it is fantastic.
Let me try.
And then Saturday night at Philly. While he's doing that, look at that.
Is that nice?
My goodness.
Wow, where are we putting you guys up these days? Holy cow.
Yeah.
Boston Harbor.
The harbor in Boston is fantastic, which is, by the way, Boston is a great city and a great sports town. Again, the Thunder Friday night at Boston, Saturday night at Philly. Darnell, for the fans watching from home, what do they need to watch for this weekend? As far as just from the Thunder's play and matchups and stuff like that.
Yeah, hopefully just a continuation of what we've seen these last 5. I mean, these are the worst 2 teams that they will have played in this stretch. So, I mean, you got to go in there and get wins. I think, of all people, Nancy Lieberman said it after the postgame show on the postgame show last night. If you don't win these 2 games, it makes kind of this 5-0 record kind of not meaningless, but it kind of undoes a lot of what you just did in this 5-game streak. So you got to go in there, get a continuation of the performances you're getting from everyone else, in addition to Kevin Durant, and get that defense that I was talking about earlier.
Jenny, what will you be watching as the Thunder take on the Celtics and the 76ers this weekend?
Can I say Kevin Durant?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on him for sure. I think Darnell brings up an interesting point, especially about how, these are 2 of the worst teams that the Thunder's going to play here in this stretch, obviously. And, they've, as a team, they've had times when it's the not good teams that they've sort of relaxed and, and even had some losses against. So I think just to continue to play with a high intensity, I'm not sure you can demand that, they look at the Celtics or the Sixers like they're playing the Spurs and the Blazers again. But, I think there's something to be said for, continuing to play well, sort of put the foot on the throat, and then get to the fourth quarter and maybe get a chance to rest your starters a little bit. So, I think continuing to sort of have that level of maturity and, ability mentally to sort of hang in there and not have big letdowns, I think would be a nice big step for this team. But, to be honest, I'm just going to be keeping an eye on that guy wearing 35.
I think sports fans all around the world will be watching that. He's been very impressive. Just as a basketball fan, to watch somebody on that sort of hot streak is impressive. Anthony, outside of the Boston Harbor, what will you be looking at this weekend?
Beyond, like she said, just how many points can Durant put up? How many can you keep piling up? How about the point guard matchup? Reggie Jackson, after, he played Tony Parker well last night, he's got 2 pretty interesting ones. Even though it's bad teams, you got Rajon Rondo back from injury. We'll see how, he's pretty limited right now, but he still brings that name appeal to the matchup. And then a nice rookie in Philadelphia, Michael Carter-Williams. I think it's two interesting matchups with Reggie Jackson, and just watching those will be fun.
Exactly right. Michael Carter-Williams leading the Rookie of the Year charge at this point. That'll do it for this edition of the Thunder Thursday Hangout. A big thanks to my colleagues, Darnell Mayberry, Anthony Slater, and Jenny Carlson for their time, for their expertise today. Be sure to check them out every day in the Oklahoman and online at newsok.com. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. The Thunder Thursday Hangout brought to you by our friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Check them out at wheelerchevy.com. That'll do it for the Thunder Thursday Hangout. Again, the Thunder in action Friday night in Boston, Saturday night in Philadelphia. Have a great Thursday afternoon, everybody.